Welcome to another edition of the P&K Podcast. I am your host, Keion Grissom.
And I'm Paul Marshall.
And Paul, it's only a few weeks until All Star Weekend. And I'm a little excited about the All Star Weekend. Slam dunk contest, old rules, no fan vote. Plus, Minnesota Timberwolves rookie Zach LaVine will be in it this year. I think he's a beast, and I think that he is hands down the person that's going to win.
I think the dunk contest will be interesting. I think it's weird because every time with the dunk contest, we always talk about what's lacking, what's exciting. It's boring, it's set up, no one cares anymore. So I think they're trying to get younger guys, and I commend them for even agreeing to do this. But we'll keep an eye on it. I do think Zach LaVine is a high flyer, but I think Giannis and Victor have a chance. But Mason, you may get something out of him, but then again, I usually don't expect tall front court players to show out a lot. So it'll probably come down to I'll pick Giannis, but I think Zach LaVine is definitely going to be in that mix.
You have the rookie-sophomore game where there's a new concept, USA versus the world. So I like to see that, especially with Andrew Wiggins, #1 draft pick, Giannis Antetokounmpo in it, Victor Oladipo, some nice young stars in the rookie-sophomore game.
I do think the rookie-sophomore challenge was the USA versus the world. I actually chuckle at that concept because Adam Silver's previous holder of his position, David Stern, if there's one thing he for sure gets credited with, it's the expansion of the game. It has gone from a domestic, it's definitely a global, it's a worldwide game. We're getting players from all over the country. So if the rookie-sophomore game, which is now the USA versus the world, it's a larger testament to what David Stern has done. And I think Adam Silver, we've talked about this before on the podcast, he's a guy who is sharp enough and can adjust and add his own wrinkle to things, but I think this USA versus world game is more of a kudos to David Stern than anything.
And of course the traditional All-Star game itself. But I'm a little upset about the participants that are in the All-Star game, which brings me into today's topic, All Star Snubs, and who just does not belong in the All-Star game. I want to get your opinions first before I give mine, Paul, so what you got for us?
Well, with All-Star voting, it's always that time of year again. And I always categorize All-Star voting. It's literally broken down into two categories for me. When fans vote for All-Stars, they're voting off of two things. Who's more deserving of a Lifetime Achievement Award, and who's the recognizable name, the sexy player. Anytime I always see who was voted for the All-Star game or what the ballots were, those are always the two things that I keep in mind. Now, as we go through the roster, it's obvious that there are a few names that jump off the page that fall into either of those two categories. I look for the East, for example. The Knicks aren't having the best season, but I understand why Melo's a starter. Makes total sense. There isn't really much to disagree with. I do give the fans credit, though. For the Hawks who are playing as well as they have this year, they voted the coach, Budenholzer, as a coach, and Teague and Al Horford and Paul Millsap. So it is good to see three Hawks in there. Many times they'll only see one or two, but to get three in there, give the fans their credit. They got this one right. However, there are definitely a couple of cases and considerations where you could maybe see some guys get in. Like I said with Carmelo Anthony, he's a recognizable name. Dwayne Wade made the All-Star team, and Chris Bosh made it. And, you could argue that Atlanta maybe Kyle Korver could have made it. There could have been one more spot for him. Or Nikola Vucevic for Orlando. I know, their record isn't as great, but he's putting up very good numbers, averaging 19.5 points and 11.2 rebounds. So he's definitely, and even a former MVP and a high caliber player, Derrick Rose. Now, although we have not seen the 2011 Derrick Rose, but he's putting up some decent numbers. And for a guy who's missed, the last two seasons, not bad.
I see your point when it comes to Derrick Rose, but Chicago has two when it comes to Jimmy Butler and Pau Gasol, so congratulations to the Chicago Bulls. Now, I want to piggyback off of what you said about Carmelo Anthony sticking with the East All-Stars. I don't think Carmelo should have made it. I get it. He's in New York. All-Star game is in New York. New York has a big fan fan following when it comes to the Knicks, but Carmelo hasn't shown the leadership, especially after the rebuilding process for him in New York, to be an all-star this year. He's missed a lot of games, plus he's kind of like publicity. He returned after an injury in London, so NBA can get a bigger following in London. So Carmelo puts on a show. I think he's kind of like fame and glamour when it comes to New York more than an actual baller. A guy that I would replace Carmelo with, not as a starter, but just in the All-Star game, will probably be Brandon Knight from the Milwaukee Bucks. I definitely believe that he deserves to be an All-Star this year. He has kind of the same numbers as Dwayne Wade from the Miami Heat. I definitely think that this was probably the biggest snub for the Eastern Conference. With injuries happening in Milwaukee, Larry Sanders injured, and their rookie, Jabari Parker, Brandon Knight has definitely stepped up. Jason Kidd has stepped up as a coach. There's top 8 in the Eastern Conference, not like the New York Knicks. So I definitely believe Brandon Knight got snubbed when it comes to the All-Star game. And I see you said Kyle Korver. I understand Kyle Korver probably should have made it into the All-Star game. By the way, congratulations to the Atlanta Hawks starting 5, all being named Players of the Month for January and see what I did there? But I think the NBA gave Kyle retribution by putting him in a 3-point contest. Hopefully he would win. So my guy that should have been in the All-Star game is definitely Brandon Knight.
Now, let's flip it over to the West. I think the West, we all agree, there are definitely legitimate cases and concerns and raised eyebrows. One of the biggest ones was, although Kobe Bryant did make the All-Star team, again, falls into 2 categories. He won't be playing, so that means there's a vacant spot open. And the NBA decided to put DeMarcus Cousins. Now, I'm not knocking the NBA for their decision, because I do think DeMarcus Cousins, again, like the Vucevic case, not a great team, but he's putting up very, very all-star-ish numbers. The problematic issue I have is that the NBA decided to elect Cousins, and that meant they would have had to leave someone out. Blazers playing guard Damian Lillard. Now, for those of you on the East Coast who haven't watched a lot of Damian Lillard's game, that's understandable. But just know, the Blazers, they were tied for now they're the 4th best. They were tied for the third best record. 32-14. He's averaging 21.8 points, 6 assists, and 4 rebounds. That was playing with another All-Star in LaMarcus Aldridge, but also without LaMarcus Aldridge, because LaMarcus Aldridge he had an injury, so he's had to miss some time. It's a very tough decision with the West, because the West is so stacked and it's loaded. But then you also have a few guys that got in, but I think it's more of name recognition. Kevin Durant hasn't been playing as well as they have. Chris Paul, it's a recognizable name. Klay Thompson for sure makes it. He's as part of the Warriors, the Splash Brothers, and their head coach Steve Kerr made it. Again, I look at the roster. Tim Duncan, it's more of the Lifetime Achievement Award. I will agree though, it is weird to not see Tim Duncan in an All-Star game. But I think with the rosters for sure, there are definitely question marks and concerns throughout the board. But again, that's one of the tricky parts about All-Star voting.
I'm actually happy that DeMarcus Cousins made the All-Star game. I'm upset that it had to come off of horrible circumstances. I really hope that Kobe Bryant gets well. But I am happy that he is in the All-Star game. I don't believe Kevin Durant should have made it. He hasn't played enough games in order for me to say he's an all-star this year. I believe that there needs to be a rule in the NBA to say that you need to play at least 30 or more games in order to be considered an all-star. Damian Lillard definitely should get all-star recognition. He puts up great numbers for the Portland Trail Blazers. Maybe he was just upset because of the fact of he was in almost every event of the All-Star game last year, and then this year just not even in New York this year, except for the skills challenge. It's ridiculous to me why he didn't make it. I understand Russell Westbrook, he had his injury slump where he had to sit out and everything, but I think that he came back with a vengeance and showed how great of a point guard he is and what he can do for the Oklahoma City Thunder. But once again, Oklahoma City Thunder are not in the top 8 of the Western Conference. Portland Trail Blazers are. Damian Lillard definitely deserved to be in that list. And Damian Lillard actually took offense of not being put in the All-Star game. He said that he was going to start the second half with a lot of vengeance. He took it very personal, and I hope that he shows the NBA universe why he's an All-Star and basically blow everybody out the water by helping Portland Trailblazers morale and leading them to the playoffs and putting on a great performance just like he did last year. Hurts for me to say that because it was against my favorite team, the Houston Rockets. But I really do hope that Damian Lillard shows out for the second half and shows everybody that he's not to mess with in this league.
Now, one of my questions is I'd like to know who's going to be in the celebrity game. But yeah, I know the NBA All-Star weekend is going to produce a lot of content, but you think there's going to be a point in this weekend where fans are going to be disappointed, or is New York and the festivities, are they all going to hold their end of the bargain?
As the Gecko would say, it's New York, baby. So I definitely think it's going to be a showcase. You can't have a party unless if it's in New York City, and New York knows how to bring it. But listeners, you tell us what you think about the All Star Snubs. What event is your favorite event when it comes to All Star Weekend? And also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thanks for listening, listeners. Have a great day.